Thank you, everyone, for attending the Planning Commission meeting. Planning Commission has returned to in-person meetings. However, we will continue to encourage remote participation and viewing of the meetings via Zoom. Please know that we want to hear from you. If you're in the physical audience or remote participating and you would like to address the commission during public comment for the items of the agenda, if you're in person, please fill out a speaker card and hand it to the staff. And if you're on Zoom, you can use the raise your hand button at the bottom of the screen. If you're joining by telephone, you may also address the commission during public comment by pressing 9 or *9, and staff will address you. And when it's your turn to speak, planning staff will call your name. If you're on Zoom or the telephone, they will unmute you. Speakers will be given 3 minutes to speak to address the commission. Please note, anyone in attendance may only speak once per item agenda. If we can have a roll call for attendance. Here.
Vice Chair Dryer.
Here.
If you're doing my mute your audio. Richard, you got it.
Here.
Commissioner Harper. Richard Johnson. Commissioner Seeger. Here.
Okay, great. Next on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. All take a lead on this one. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next on the agenda, we have approval of minutes from the February 21st, 2023 meeting.
I move to approve the minutes from February 21st, 2023.
Second. All right, well, we have a second. Can we take a roll call, please, on that?
Chair
Aye.
Vice Chair Dryer.
Aye.
Commissioner Biassatti.
Aye.
Commissioner Harden.
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson. Aye. Commissioner Coon.
Aye.
I'm Aye. Motion passes 7-0-0.
Through the chair, just as a point of order, we haven't been in person for so long. For this kind of usually routine motion, can we just call for acclamation? Just, speed up the process.
Not a problem with me.
Is that,
Well, I vote of hand.
or do we need a full roll call? I know we shifted the full roll call Zoom format because of, the requirement around it. But to clearly register, but for relatively routine motions like the minutes, can we just say,
Yes.
all those in favor say aye?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay, good to know.
something I remember from before the.
All right. Okay, moving on. Next is item number 5, public comments on items not on the agenda. Do we have any comments from members of the public for any not on the slate tonight? Anyone on Zoom? No?
I see no hands raised. So.
Okay, let's move on from item 5 on to item 6. Announcements of conflict of interest. Does anyone on the commission have a conflict of interest for any agenda items? See introduced to announce. Not seeing any there either, so we're zooming on through here. Okay, let's go to.
I'll just ask, I didn't actually check the map. It occurs to me that the 444 B sent to you. Did you check it for us?
Yes, I checked it.
Beyond my range. Okay,
Yes,
good.
yes.
Yes, I just realized that's pretty close to my house.
Yes, yeah, no, you're outside of the, and Marco is as well, so. All right, great. Okay, next, is item number 7, public hearing. we're going to go to item 7A, which is a request for conditional use permit to allow community facilities to operate at an existing second floor space at 444B San Mateo Avenue pursuant to section 12.280.020.B of the San Bruno Municipal Code, Pacific Star King Lodge, the applicant, and the Welch Family Partnership owner, EP 23-003. This project has been determined to be category exempt per the California Environmental Quality Act, guidelines class 1, section 15301, existing facilities. Do we have a presentation from staff?
Yes, we do. Students.
The commission will need to turn chairs around. We get the back quad.
Good evening, planning commission and members of the public. Let's get started. Our public hearing item of tonight is a use permit for the property 444B San Mateo Avenue. The request before you is a conversion of land use to allow a private community facilities to operate at the existing second floor space. Private community facilities are in conditional use, which may be permitted once a use permit is granted from the planning commission. And we'll go more in depth on the land use in a later slide. 444B San Mateo is located on San Mateo Avenue between Cypress Court and Taylor Avenue. It is a 5,000 square foot lot in the Central Business District or CBD zone. The subject property is a 2-story commercial building with 3 units, 2 tenant spaces on the ground floor and 1 tenant space on the second floor. So I would like to pause just to make sure I'm sharing these papers. The second floor space is 4,416 square feet. You'll notice on this parcel map that the only property line facing the street is the front elevation along San Mateo Avenue. The subject property is landlocked on its 3 other sides. Existing conditions of the space include the following. 444B is the second-story space, and its previous tenant was a travel agency that operated from May 2000 through June 2019. 442 on the ground floor is currently a retail, craft, and game shop that has been in operation since August 2014. And 444, the second ground floor space, is a children's ballet school that has been in operation since 2021. Now, looking at the rear elevation, the building does have an existing fire escape ladder for the second story, but the surrounding fences and existing trash enclosure means the fire escape route has no circulation off of the property. Here we'll look at some photos of the subject property. We have the front elevation taken from San Mateo Avenue and the rear elevation taken from the private parking lot on Mastic Avenue. To the left of 444B, we have 446 San Mateo, and Tea House and Cafe. To the left, we have, to the right, we have 440 San Mateo, a single-story building with several small units of retail, service, and office space. Properties adjacent include 443 San Mateo, which is across the street. It's an existing hair salon. And at the rear, the subject property faces 2 single-family dwellings, 437 and 435 Mastic Avenue. We're going to move on now to the proposed project details. Pursuant to San Bruno Municipal Code Section 12.280, private community facilities are listed as a condition of use in the Central Business District zone. As listed under 12.80.147, a community facility is defined as a public or private facility that provides meeting space for public gatherings that functions as a cultural institution within the community. This term is defined even further. So looking at number 2, private community facilities includes privately owned community centers, clubs and lodges, places of worship, senior centers, libraries, museums, and other similar private uses. As you'll find in attachment 4, the applicant represents the Pacific Star Team Lodge. So the proposed use would fall under this definition. Now let's take a look at the existing space. As we mentioned earlier, this used to be a travel agency, so the second floor was fitted with several office spaces. The total square footage again of the space is 4,416 square feet. The proposed floor plan intends to conduct a full renovation of the space. The red outline shows the walls that will be created. And here the more detailed list for the tenant improvements taking place. A new banquet hall accommodating 50 people once a month and 20 people once a week. A new meeting room accommodating 20 people once a week. 2 new offices, one for the tenant and the other that can be subleased by the property owner. 2 renovated restrooms. An A-rated prep room will provide cabinets, countertops, a microwave and refrigerator, storage room, and an elevator. Moving on to the first floor, the applicant proposes the addition of 2 doors and stairways leading to the second story. These additional entrances comply with California Building Code to ensure that occupancy with overflow shall provide 2 points of egress in the event of an emergency. There are no other building sites that these 2 points of egress can be placed, because again, the building has no other frontages that face the street. We also intend to remove the existing stairway and replace it with an elevator to provide ADA accessibility. Here is the existing elevation facing San Mateo Avenue. You'll notice that 444B has a main entrance in the center of the building. In the proposed elevation, we have 2 additional doors on both sides of the building shown in red. There is also a proposed elevator equipment penthouse on the roof. It will be the same color and material as the existing building. In chapter 12.108.101 municipal code, we have exemptions for architectural review permits. Minor facade alterations include changes or alterations to the exterior of an existing building where no increase in the square footage of the building will occur, including but not limited to the addition of doors or the elimination of existing doors. With that said, this exemption applies because the project is conducting alteration, adding 2 doors, which will not result in increase of square footage for the building. Up next, we'll look at parking, and we will refer to chapter 12.100, off-street parking, in the municipal code. Under subsection B1, off-street parking standards as required by this chapter shall apply to A, projects with any enlargement, remodel, or physical alteration to an existing structure in a manner that increases the number of required off-street parking spaces, and B, project with any changes to the land use occupying an existing structure that increases the number of required off-street parking spaces. Subsection B2 states that the off-street parking as required by subsection B1 is required only to accommodate the off-street incremental change or expansion of legally established land uses. Additional parking is not required to remedy parking deficiencies existing prior to the land use change. In attachment 5, you'll see a staff report from 1987 for use permit 87-3. This staff report recommended the approval of a use permit to allow the operation of an aerobic studio at 444 San Mateo Avenue, one of the ground floor spaces. Specifically, page 2 of the staff report states the following. This structure was built with no on-site parking. However, the property is a participant in the San Mateo Avenue Parking Assessment District, and according to the city zoning ordinance, it is exempt from having to provide on-site parking. Thus, subsection B2 applies in this scenario, and the city cannot require a project to provide additional parking to remedy parking deficiencies existing prior to the land use change. Regardless, I do want to go over the requirements in subsection E1. To determine the number of required off-street parking spaces, we'll compare the standards based on their land use. The existing land use travel agency is classified as office, in which one parking space is required for 300 square feet of floor area. The proposed land use community facilities required one parking space per 300 square feet of public floor area. Public floor area is defined as the primary floor area open and accessible to customers of the business. Utility rooms, storage areas, kitchens, and other back of house operation areas are not considered as public floor area. So in the green, I've highlighted all the areas considered public floor area. And the total is 3,016 square feet. And just really quickly, that means the remaining spaces are shown in red, which are private floor area. These are the offices, restrooms, catering prep rooms, and storage rooms. So with this new information, let's go back to our earlier table and see how these standards apply. Knowing that the second floor space is 4,416 square feet, we'll divide that number by 300 to determine that 15 spaces were previously required. For the proposed project, the total public floor area is 3,060, in which 11 spaces are now required. With 11 spaces being less than the existing required parking spaces, we can conclude that the off-street parking standards under subsection B1 do not apply. And as we mentioned before, the off-street parking standards apply when an enlargement, remodel, physical alteration, or land use conversion result in an increase in the number of off-street parking requirements. The parking calculator demonstrates that there will not be an increase in the number of required off-street parking spaces. Therefore, the proposed use is not subject to the off-street parking requirements. They're also not subject to paying the parking meter. And here is an aerial view of the subject property. In the green, I've highlighted the public parking lots that serve the members of the proposed use. And on that note, we'll wrap up this presentation with the findings of fact. Pursuant to subsection 12.112.050, the use permit can be granted by the planning commission only if the proposed use complies with the findings of fact. The proposed development will not, under the circumstances of the particular case, be detrimental to health, safety, morals, comfort, and general welfare of persons residing or working in the neighborhood of such proposed use. After numerous conversations with our fire marshal and the building division, staff has reviewed the application against the California Building Code and determined that the project will not be detrimental to the health, safety, and general welfare of the persons residing or working in the neighborhood. The proposed development will not be injurious or detrimental to the property and improvements in the neighborhood or to the general welfare of the city. The applicant is proposing a private community facility providing a space for its members and will generate an increase in foot traffic in the downtown area. Further, staff finds that the parking is available around the site and in public parking lots to serve the proposed use. Number 3, the proposed development will be consistent with the general plan. Through the San Bruno General Plan, this property is designated as Central Business District, which conditionally permits personal, business, educational, and social services. Therefore, staff finds that the project is consistent with its general plan indication. Staff is recommending approval for UP 23-003 based on the findings of fact 1-3 and subject to conditions of approval found in addition 1. And that's all of the staff. We move on to discussion.
Okay, thank you. Great presentation as always. Great. Let's see, do we have anyone from the applicant or the architect or the applicant who wishes to speak?
Yes, we do. We have Richard Cameron, who is the applicant on behalf of Start King Lodge.
Thank you. My name is Richard Campbell. I'm the elected representative of Pacific Star King Lodge. And I would like to say more. We do have our architect here. One member is physically present. There's others, I believe, online. We also have a representative of the owner, and also the owner of the Tutu School, which is a tenant down below. And the gamers here, the other tenants here also. We're looking forward to this. Our membership has been looking for a long-term permanent location for quite some time. For the past year, we've been renting another facility on San Mateo Avenue until a more permanent one has been found. We have found all the local restaurants and other activities to be perfect for what we do, which is fellowship. Our vision of community engagement. We host fundraisers, youth groups. This facility would be ideal. We meet every single Monday night, sometimes formally, like last night in Tuxedo. We had about 30 people up and down San Mateo Avenue, and we had a very, very good dinner locally. And other nights, just very casual. We also host other activities, on average, about once a month. It varies, and that's where the banquet hall really comes into play. And I'm here to answer any questions anybody might have.
I was curious whether, I mean, you anticipate renting out the space for other functions, because if you're not using it every night of the week, it seems a shame to just have the space sit completely idle for, 3/4, 4/5 of the time.
Yeah, we as Pacific Star King Lodge are not focused on renting out the location, with an exception. We did build in that sublease office to offset the rent. I understand exactly what you mean, but we do not plan on renting that out. I mean, we engage with various different use orders and whatever. Sometimes they ask if they can use a facility, because we're in the business, if you will, of helping the community. We quite often donate that kind of stuff. So I'm not sure if I answered the question.
Yeah, I mean, I like the question of whether it's paid rental or donated to a scavenger troop or something, I'm just curious, and sort of like, do you anticipate the space being in use sort of somewhat more than just once a week or so?
I think the simple answer is no.
Did I understand correctly? There are tenants on the lower floor, and they realize that these renovations are going to be quite disruptive with new elevator, it's like maybe bearing walls changing and things like that.
Correct. There's 2 different tenants on the ground floor. We try to minimize the disruption as much as possible, but like the report said, we really had absolutely no choice. We had to put 2 stairways in. We looked at every single possible option to mitigate that, but there was really, because being landlocked on every side, we had no choice. And
So will they have to shut down? Because I mean, you're probably looking at a seismic retrofit, given what you're doing to the front facade, to the doors, no walls at all.
no, we looked at the affected areas, and based on what we know for the seismic thing that has to be done for the stairway, elevator is not as much of a disruption as you might think for tenants. It would mostly impact the window during the construction, but their main entrance doesn't get impacted. And we saw no reason to shut down the business. Plus, we looked at the operating business hours and days, and it would be it would work very well with the construction schedule as far as times of construction.
Okay, just appeared to be an elevator pit, so foundation work and whatnot, so sure, they're aware of all that. Okay, fair enough. What's the location of the space that you're renting right now that you're using for this?
We have been and currently at the American Legion Hall, 757 San Mateo Avenue. Been there for, I think, over a year.
And what are the exact hours of use that you anticipate on? I know it sounds like the evening on Mondays. What are the hours?
Good question. So, on average, we meet every single Monday. We have dinner, so it's 6 o'clock dinner. Then we have social or some meeting afterwards, and we usually wrap it up around 9 o'clock.
Yeah, about how many folks do you have in there at one time? About 50,
No, on average, on Mondays, about 20.
20?
Rarely is it more than 20 on an average Monday. Last night we had 30, which was we had a little bit of a special night.
And everybody parks on San Mateo Avenue when they come to that.
But in the area, correct. Everybody's kind of learned to park in the lot behind the building.
Any other speakers on behalf of your organization or architect or anyone of your rules? Not mandatory.
I think that's it.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks so much.
Have a second committee part from Scott Cunningham.
Scott Cunningham, I'm one of the owners of Heretic Games. It's one of the bottom units. It's at 442. I have some concerns about this because the stairwell is gonna greatly affect us. First, the construction. The contractors I spoke to said this is at least a year of work and it's gonna shut down the front of my store for that time. On top of that, I'm losing 100 square feet of the front of my store, which is gonna cut realistically a third of my play space down, which is a huge deal for me. So I mean, following building codes, 2 ways of egress, I'm not sure how they can get around that, but don't see how you can realistically put a stairwell on the side where I am without it severely hurting me. Any questions or comments on that?
Chair. I was in a question for staff, wondering if this is an issue between the tenant and the. I mean, not, it may be out of our jurisdiction to address that issue simply because
Right.
we don't have any responsibility
Right.
to the actual
Okay,
building of the relationship between the other.
I understand.
So I would think that quash that. So, investments would be able to address that issue.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Your work.
Let me. If this gentleman has leased that space from the Welch family, I mean, would essentially withdrawing his access to that space before that seems like it would violate the. That is just a,
Through the chair, and that's why I'm thinking that it perhaps a tenant owner,
Yeah.
a discussion. And, there are lots of, I have ideas, but it's not been appropriate for me to address this at this time. It's not my jurisdiction.
Thank you.
On that point, was there a floor plan of the first floor on screen? I can't remember if it was just second floor or first floor. And this is on the left-hand side of the street, is that correct?
As.
If you want to go back and ask a question.
Yeah, sure.
Has there been any discussion about phasing this works in a way to minimize impacts to your business, for example? EV or performing the stair work first, getting that out of the way and then letting you, I assume you have to rearrange your floor plan in that area, but that's gonna.
I would have to, yes. No, there's been no talk to me about that. I was just presented the plans, as you're seeing them there, and that was all.
I see.
Just to be clear, I think we've already cleared this up, but as a body, we are looking at it from the perspective of the general plan of the city. Am I right? And
You're looking at it in terms of use permit.
right,
And we, at the staff level, Christie is trying to make sure that if there was communication among the landlord tenants about this issue, which seems, doesn't seem quite resolved. So certainly one option for commission. Well, certainly, yeah, it's not beneficial for the city to approve a use permit that involves the taking of a
portion of a ground floor tenant space without the tenant's consent. Obviously, we have property owner consent for the applicant to move forward with their application, but this is a very unusual situation. So one option would be, certainly they can continue this item to your next meeting, rather than taking an action this evening, to make sure that any issues with tenant on the ground floor in terms of how the construction will impact them and the ownership, how that changes his lease terms would be worked out.
So as a higher level question. It sounds like there was no way to make that rear fire escape work at this point. Would there be any way to do a legal use of the upper floor without some retrofit like this? It's basically like, in order to have appropriate fire egress under modern code, it needs two exits, and there's no way to make it work at the rear. So is it basically like that upper floor cannot legally be put back into use without a retrofit like this?
So the existing space is used as offices, so another office use can come in there.
But
The change
because
is
it
back-
people in a
Yeah.
panic falls.
Is under the building code, you're changing it to an assembly portion of the building to an assembly use, which has, based on the occupancy, has different
Stricter egress requirements.
egress, and also ADA, thus the need for the elevator. So that's those all part of the required.
Okay, thank you. How long have you been in business at this location?
Since 2014.
Okay, so you've been there a good while.
Yeah, we plan to stay as long as we can.
Sure.
So things are going okay for us. Not amazing, but okay.
Okay. All right, yeah, I think I just echoed the comments Commissioner Levitt is, sounds like there's some negotiations or something, agreement has to happen with the landlord. I think we're kind of, Johnson said, we're only kind of weighing in the implications for the use, not so much all the real battle or real challenge here is getting you guys to work together.
Okay.
That's happening, so, but I appreciate you speaking, and yeah, I'll have to check out your story.
Thanks.
Great story.
It is.
Do we have any other speakers in the
We
audience?
have no more remarks, and I see no hand raised.
Everyone here, go ahead.
Come here, should I just fill this up? Oh, okay.
Yeah, we just,
Okay. So I understand that, I'm the other co-owner of Caretaking. So I understand that, the issue I would have to bring up with, Whitney and Welsh. But, hopefully, I did want to ask, how will, Kingstar minimize disruption? Because if it's because the street, it can be a little narrow, especially with Petite Baleen. With a lot of children, there's a lot of strollers, and it's been hard for some people to navigate, and I understand that, chairs have, had trouble going around, especially when, there's construction going on, and I also want to hear about, time of construction, because they brought up like, it won't interfere with store hours, but that's not very clear to me, like, or, what those hours are.
thank you.
One of the things that we have been encouraged from past times is when the applicant produces this plan of action and involves specifics. And so think about yours, these are I'm thinking of that part.
Sorry, guys, I didn't see the approval, have those been outlined? And some of those conditions might answer the question about construction hours, usually that's one of the conditions, can you?
Sure, I can read that.
comment?
So, hopefully your packets have attachment one. This is 12:44. And for Commission 8,
Page seven.
this is 12.
Well, what about that?
For the city of San Bruno Municipal Code Section 6.16, which refers to the term, the authorizing of any equipment, performance of any outside construction related to the project shall not exceed the noise level and time indicated below. The times are Monday through Saturday, 7 to 10 p.m. at 85 decibels per maximum. 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. at 60 decibels maximum. On Sunday, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. at 85 decibels. And 7 p.m. to 10 a.m. at 60 decibels.
I mean, it sounds like this is largely kind of the standard condition of approval, the compliant with our code. It doesn't, I mean, I think. In theory, we could have a condition of approval that, sort of requires more. Deference or attempt to cooperate with, avoiding disruption to the existing businesses than just sort of bare code requirements. That's, I think it's fairly unusual, and usually we would set up to be negotiated between the tenants and the landlord. I don't- Just having it sit vacant for that extensive period, I think I'd be happier if I was hearing that, oh, we're gonna have more of our other policy more often, whether for pay or. I don't know.
Sounds to me like the space could be used for a variety of uses. It doesn't necessarily have to, I mean, it's being proposed as a use for, public gatherings. However, it doesn't have to be. So in theory, if they continue to use it for office space, the one exit would be, at the egress exit would be adequate. And this wouldn't be a detriment to the tenants below. Whether or not that's our is that within our purview, or is that really, that's really just?
No, and since the office is a permitted use,
I mean,
another person could come in, just.
to the chair, I mean, if we rejected this, then some other applicant could come along and want to do this office, but it's, like, obviously we can't force the Star King lot to use it as purely an office. Makes sense.
Right, but no, of course not, of course, I just don't know, because there are a variety of uses for this space. We as a body are meant to.
Yeah.
Say what that use shall be. You know what I mean?
Such a hard. See, the only chance for you is the shoulders.
Right.
So. Yeah. Understood. Yeah, I believe that any change of occupancy, not just assembly, require executives to be added to the building, it's not because it's an assembly. If it becomes anything but an office. So changes will be required by code. Assemblies may require larger or more things that are triple use. But yeah, I think in this case, it sounds like the key to a successful project is going to be
negotiations between the tenant and landlord to provide, uninterrupted business to the current tenants, a way to get in, especially if there needs to be, street barriers, protect the sidewalk and public walking by construction, and also provide a safe access to their space. I think that's a minimum, and that's probably something that should be taken care of when the building permit is issued, to get all those things hammered out. Yeah, that's probably a bit more detail than what we have here.
Okay, sure. After taking this all in, I'm kind of leaning towards continuing it until all parties have resolved the usage of space. I mean, it's kind of like approving someone to remodel their house where it's going to impede on into their next door neighbor's property. So I think until we resolve that, we shouldn't really move too much further forward. And I have a question. You're an engineer. Could they put fire escapes in the front of the building rather than go through all of this on the inside? I mean,
Like a typed up fold out, or
something other than having to do internal stairs, like.
I'm not sure that's allowed anymore. That's yeah, I need to talk to an architect about that, but I would think that possibly could be a way to get out on or revamp that. There's some kind of things.
Street farm.
Yeah.
Gravel.
Yeah, that might not, especially with an assembly space, it may not provide adequate volume to get people out fast enough, but okay. Okay, the other speakers on this one?
I see no hands raised, and
Just from the chair, I have one more question. I was hoping to see a little bit more detail about how the house above the elevator was planned to be finished. It kind of looks a little funny with like just a new little box sitting on the roof. I don't know if there was going to be a parapet planned, something to maintain the visual integrity of the building.
So you have before you, but I'm consulting with him in anticipation of this body approving. So I'll carry forward. As far as the elevator penthouse, it's a little bit one point directional the way you see it represented on your drawing. So it's a little out of character as to actually how you're going to perceive it, because right now on the ground floor, your angle up, you're not going to really see it. You can see it partially across the street, maybe, because it's set back a little bit, and it's only going to be about 4 or 5 feet high, and there's no plaster finish. And we could look at that further. We have to put up another intermediate, like a parapet or some sort of screw device or something that's a little bit less noticeable. Basically, a cement plaster enclosure.
Okay.
But we can look into that. But yeah, I understand your concern.
Notice how it is set back.
Yeah, setback. Also, you have a hard time to actually see it from the one point perspective of being on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So again, maybe across the street, definitely not fine. And I'm hoping to minimize. And it is a code requirement. As the fire marshal and the building authority, I just go through this whole process. That's why we're here.
Thank you.
The building has a parapet on the front side, existing, or is it pure roof?
Pure roof.
Okay.
Pure roof, nothing there. But I think we have to go back and we'll probably end up going on the roof and exploring. There are some side parapets, those are just part of the basic structure of the building. It's concrete block.
Any mechanical units going on the roof that would need screening?
We're trying to avoid that. We're gonna put those on the ground floor, do packaging. No package units at this time.
Okay, so in the back of the property?
Yeah, probably at the ground level. I do a heat pump of sorts. Let's do localized,
Okay,
try to minimize that.
Chair,
sure.
are you aware of the community discussion between the tenant and landlord, regarding the concerns that were presented this evening?
As far as the discussions, Richard here was probably more privy to those.
But I don't really know of any discussions between the landlord and the tenants. I've been interfacing with the landlord.
If it's a value, yeah, landlord is the or, I don't know if it's a value, so no.
Is that what here?
Yeah, so, wash actually.
My name's Whitney. I'm actually the owner of the Children's Ballet School, and I'm also a Welch, so I work for the family company. I have spoken with the tenants next door, but just very brief. It was just a one-time conversation, and we haven't got much further than that. I think that the conversation obviously needs to be had on both my behalf as the tenant, like as the neighbor, and not as much the owner as well as with the other ones, but also as the landlord with each tenant, because it would disrupt some of our space and it would ultimately decrease our size of our units. But again, the conversations have been very brief and not really discussed too much, because if there wasn't gonna be the approval, there wasn't necessarily the need. So the final plans were just brought to me recently, and so I just had a very, very brief discussion with the neighbors. Of course, we both are concerned about the space that it would take from us. It would be my waiting area where the parents sit, as well as a lot of their gaming space. The one great benefit of the upstairs is they did offer to have both of us have events, or I host summer camps and stuff like that. They could be utilized upstairs. So there is like some benefits that, yes, some of our space would be taken, but ultimately there could be extra space we would be given rent-free, basically. So there's a lot more to be discussed as far as tenants and landlords, and I just wanted to answer that. The conversation has been very short and brief between everybody so far.
So it sounds like it is premature.
Yes.
And so would you have any opposition to have a continuance until some of that discussion takes place? Is it more?
I mean, no, I don't think so. I think we just wanted to have the gentleman present their plan to you guys and see if it was even a remote possibility. If it was just gonna be a no, that makes it pretty easy. But if it is gonna, if you guys are allowing a continuance, I think that gives us extra time to discuss as neighbors and tenants and landlord-tenant relationships. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification.
Any other speakers on this agenda item? Okay. Planning commission members want to speak on any of this, please feel free.
So
Charles?
I did have a question on kind of a higher level point. It looks to me like in terms of the parking, I mean, their group is currently operating on another part of San Mateo. I'm not sure it's fine. It does seem odd that the parking requirement for this change in use lowers the amount of parking. I find it a little bit, I'm a little skeptical that you would have fewer visits. It would be a very different time of day and much spikier. But in terms, I mean, if you have 30 people come versus, 5 people working in an office and 3 or 4 customers at a time, it seems like the parking requirement associated with this use is actually a larger number of spaces at peak usage. So that seems like it may be a little bit of a glitch in our code. Now I said, I think regardless, it's probably fine that, but I mean, that 6 p.m. hour, that's, sort of the peak time for the restaurants in the area. It's like it is a fairly high parking demand time. It does missing a little weird that the code is written that way. Maybe that's something for you, to throw on the agenda for sometime next 5 years. So that's odd.
Okay. Just a point here, I was supposed to take a vote to close public comment there, and then we can discuss more. So why don't we do that now? If there are no other speakers, I'll make the motion that we close public comment. Second.
Who's the second? Chairman,
Aye.
Vice Chair Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Diaz-Lando.
Aye.
Commissioner Harden,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Coon,
Aye.
Commissioner Levin. Aye. Motion passes 7-0-0-0.
Okay, great. Now the planning commission should speak freely on any questions or comments they'd like to make on this topic.
Sure. So a couple of things. I'm in favor of a continuance. I really want this to work. I'm really interested and value the use of space as a separate alliance. I think community service clubs should have a space. And we've been struggling for a place to meet for years and meeting outside of San Bruno, that same issue that you're trying to resolve here. So I definitely have my empathy. And also appreciate the store. It's really cool. I walk by all the time. Y'all are survivors. I remember you got your window broken, you overcame that, stayed in business. Yeah, so I want to make sure that you stay downtown, that you feel respected, feel valued, and you have a long-term future there. The more that we can work these things out before it comes back to us, I want to value that. We had another situation that's probably going to end up in litigation because folks weren't talking to each other and working things out and it coming to us. And I think putting us in an awkward spot to adjudicate that. And I just felt like the communication had broken down in so many ways and it kept coming back to us. So I'm really going to encourage you, dialogue with each other, work, be clear about what you need and how you can make that work for everyone and bring it back to us so that we can figure out how to kind of make it work for everyone, if I can say that. And secondly, we can talk about this continuation, Commissioner Hartman, the parking just mystifies me a little bit as well. I understand the regulation, but that area of San Mateo Avenue is problematic. Double parking, when I was on traffic and safety, we voted on those loading zones, those temporary zones. As far as I can tell, we're never enforced, right? We high five each other because we thought we were doing something good, and none of them were enforced. You have people parking in loading zones and temporary zones for hours at a time. So like, I just don't know what that's gonna do on a Monday evening when you have people like my family going to the swim school and you have people double parking, you have I see people jump out, walk around cars. That area in particular is a headache. So, maybe we can talk about that. That's all.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Also in favor of continuance, I'd really like to see conversation between the tenants. Make sure that it's somewhere in the conditions of, well, I think there's two things really big. One is a unique set of construction hours that maybe it's through staff that matches the tenants' current business activities. And then the second one is I forget what you call this, but it's like construction mitigation, traffic plan, something where it shows during the period of construction how that road's taken, how it will not impact traffic on the street. Those two things. Also, I do feel I have mixed feelings about this use just in general, and it's really because it's only used once a week. Now, I'll say on most extreme view, if you were to say this was only used once a year, one night once a year, I would say that probably does not fit the intent, right? Once a week, one night, once a week. Also, what's it really bringing to the downtown? I don't know. So, but I would then ask if you could open it up more often to other folks, and that was bringing more folks downtown, because that's really what is more foot traffic. Thank you.
Thank you.
And this just goes to the example that the Lions might be interested in renting the space. Again, I don't know whether that's for pay or whether it's for donation, but I think anything that the state could still, 3-4 nights do without one, that I really use a thought of the idea that's there, come on by, 80% of the time.
Good chair.
Yes.
I'm part of the Rotarian, so I see the other side of the face and desire almost the same things, right? So having a community space, I think it's really great opportunity. On the other side, being a business owner for 45 years in San Bernardino, the reality is, business owner, you have to take risks. And when you have people come in and out of your building, there's a risk to that, there's cost to that. So I think it's important to recognize that that this particular association wants to be generous and to be thoughtful, but there is that piece of it. So as much as what we want, there are limitations and risks to come with that. And so it's important for me that I base this on what is best for what you're proposing. And if we get to benefit that both. I certainly would not put my decision based upon only one theory that I would support the decision or presentation that's good. It needs what your needs are. And opportunity for new things.
Thank you. Anyone else have a question? Yeah, I'd just like to echo a lot of the comments made by, just on the commission, my kind of first instinct during the presentation is, what about the people downstairs? The stuff, that's why I was asking questions about retrofit, elevator pits, all that stuff. It's gonna be quite disruptive. And, so I really, really hope that everyone involved works together in an honest way and is empathetic of each other's positions and can come to an arrangement that allows the businesses to stay open and function as best possible if this goes forward, and respects their, they have a lease, they weren't expecting this to happen to their business, and that's respected. I'm not as concerned about the parking issue, because I think my understanding is this has been a vacant space for quite some time upstairs. So I think bringing any type of new traffic to the area is good for the downtown. Maybe the police department needs to stop people from double parking and whatnot. So maybe that could be an enforcement issue, but I was downtown a few nights ago, and it's pretty quiet around that time of night, I'd say, on most nights. I was disappointed though to hear that it's not really being considered to rent or for the general public to use the space, but I understand. It's a club. You don't want people in your space who could possibly damage it or whatnot. So I get that, but yeah, I think a continuance is probably a great idea in this instance, and let you guys have some time to develop the plans maybe a little bit further along, so the tenants can understand what we're proposing, and then have those meetings and have some good faith negotiations on how to proceed forward.
I just want to, the staff has the bandwidth to investigate, like, is there within our between our building and sort of, planning code in terms of the aesthetics, like whether some accommodation can be found that would vacate the need for the large disruption of the stairway, like whether something like the, roll down fire escape, or I don't know, but like whether there's any in our code.
We can ask that, we can ask the building department that question.
Yeah, I think that if that can be answered in the next, 3 days to a week, it would help give direction, and if it can be worked out, that seems like it would make a lot less stuff.
The chair, last comment.
Sure.
There's a real advantage here that we have, Whitney Walsh being able to present that it's going to affect her as well, as an owner and also as a business owner there. So there was a little opportunity there for like to be able to channel this more into better on her.
Anything else? Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I would like to move to the our next regular meeting.
Second,
Okay, second.
Can I require us to modify that to approval? Like when we come back with a plan for action between the landlord and the tenants?
So I got the authority, make an ask like that, and
Well, I think you've made it very clear in your comments,
what we want in order.
what you want, before they get back to you. It could be made part of the motion if we choose, let's say, continue it to a date specific, to give an applicant an opportunity to work with the landlord, their tenants, and then also the construction piece, and the building code piece as well.
I personally feel like it's clear enough what we're looking for.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that's okay. And the specific date would be April 18th.
correct.
Say, so.
Okay.
US 214. Seconded.
Okay, you could go roll call vote.
Chairman,
Aye.
Vice Chair Duras.
Aye.
Commissioner Biassatti.
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman.
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson.
I'm,
Commissioner Coons.
Aye.
Commissioner Lennon.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0-0-0.
Great, thank you. Okay, that is our only public hearing item for tonight, so moving on to item number 8, which is conduct of business. I think we have something there. Staff, correct.
The last planning commission is where the picture last. Planning commission is where, at your last meeting, considered a resolution to the recommendation to the city council. The resolution that we had in the packet was one for approval, or to endorse the changing of the cannabis regulations. So what we typically do in situations like this, is because the city council needs a written record of your decision, you know, the city attorney and I decided that the best course of action would be to modify the resolution and then present it to you just for your review. So if you have any comments, anything within the resolution, if any wording changes or anything that you feel needs to be changed to better reflect your decision, we would welcome that. And then, so it's similar to approving minutes where you would just, make a motion to approve the resolution as presented or with any changes.
Okay, so you don't have any proposed changes?
Well, I was just, Chair, that I did review the language and it was consistent with my intent, the motion that was passed. So I'm fine with that too.
I don't have a copy in front of me, but I think item 6 might. I know what it's trying to say, but I don't remember if it's exactly correct. Saying that the amendment reducing the number of permitted cannabis retailers allowed distribution will not be detrimental. We're not proposing reducing it, right? We're proposing, saying page 39, 44, exactly. So that's it, obviously a carryover for first resolution.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I was just reading it wrong, but it felt like it was a remnant or opposite of what we were saying. We're not supposed to reduce anything. So that would be my only suggestion, is to either strike that entirely or reword.
Say that the existing ordinance is not detrimental to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we still need to keep it because it is one of the required findings, so.
Yeah, if we get rid of the existing ordinance is not detrimental, but it's.
So do we make a motion or do we just tell you what we just said?
So, yeah, caption it, you could just say, make a motion to approve the resolution with change to item 6.
Okay, if no one has any other comments, we'll do a motion to approve comments with amendments to item 6 that they proposed?
I think it was for the modified resolution. Second.
We do the hand vote on this? All those in favor?
Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on, next item is item 9, items for staff.
I did want to just make the commission aware that at your next meeting, we have a scoping session, which is for the environmental review document that's going to be prepared for the Crestmore High School subdivision. And I don't know how, I guess I'll be honest with you. In information that's been presented to the city in terms of the schedule of events, not only for the school, for the planning process for the school, but also there's a parallel process going on for the design of the soccer fields where the city has hired Calendar Associates for that effort. And there are, if you've read or city manager's recent newsletter, I believe there was a schedule in there. I can also provide you a link to that as well. But the time of the scoping meeting was identified as 6 p.m. So I wanted to check to see if the commission had any objections to meeting at 6 p.m. for the scoping session, and then our regular meeting at 7. The scoping session will take pretty much the full hour, at least 45 minutes, not the full hour. So it would not be, any wasted time. We have this the other item continued tonight. So I just want to make sure that the time is going to be acceptable
For the April.
yeah, for April. So people nodding their heads that 6 is okay. Thank you for.
Find this very small change.
Okay. It's really good staff.
Like members for.
Oh, and
Progress for review.
we do have, our April, ARC meeting, we do have the 2 new houses, so. We said you cannot, volunteer, but we still do need volunteers for next year, so.
David, there's pairs.
But it's easy, it's a 13.
Still in my. Recommend them all, people, so yeah.
Check, yeah, technically.
I don't say I sat in the last one. When we as an alternate, but we have. Just make sure we have that.
You can do it. Thanks.
I will have to get back to you. I may have a class on that night, so I'm not sure, but if I don't, I don't get there. I don't remember what night the classes.
There's a.
Right.
Right, unfortunately, will not be available,
If we're down to absolutely need to do it, I can do it. I would be. I'm flying out the day after that, but.
Okay. Well, I mean, we certainly can do them too, so,
Yeah, I thought we had one before, which is 2, right?
yeah, so that 2 isn't for us, that's fine.
Through the chair, I thought the rules on conflict of interest had changed this year in regards to materiality. And so you can look at the changes to the, to the proposed development. So family home, it's not materially impact the value of your home, that you might be able to participate. That's why it's something that we gotta go back and get some more education from.
Yeah,
the city attorney.
yeah, so so if your EDC rules, if you're within 5 that a proposed development, and the case of Mr. Biasetti, there is since it's new construction, there is a direct conflict of interest, so we'd not be able to participate in that, so.
So that, I understood that was your, and there's a materiality.
Yeah, so
It's down.
right, so it's,
I'm just bringing it up.
no, you're correct, though, for other. So then there's also now 1,000-foot radius where that's. Ambiguous kind of situation where, that's usually when we go to the city attorney to see whether they participate or not. And then, you know, regarding voting on various kinds of ordinances, related to like cannabis businesses or zoning changes, that's where the whole, materiality, I think, comes into play, where they're, you know, changing an ordinance, not materially change, you know, or benefit you or your property per se, that's where we typically go to the city attorney, the city attorney might say yes, in the situation would be. So there's a challenge, so I appreciate that. I'll get back to you tomorrow. Okay, great. That's good. Thank you all. Any feedback on the setup, or I feel like we probably should request microphones. Yeah,
Yeah, get it down right here, get more people here, it's gonna be really hard.
yeah,
I think there's a presentation, that's a struggle here as well.
yeah.
That's just actually looking away from.
Right.
Does that monitor normally function, it's just out tonight?
Well,
Like, it's far away.
Yeah. I was gonna say,
Yeah.
you have a screen that can sit up, look straight at it.
I kind of considered logging into the Zoom just to be able to see it directly on my screen, but yeah.
How we were set up in past times, is that commission was in this direction, staff was in this direction.
Yeah, we used to have
And
a projection screen.
audience in this direction, you could actually pivot to one or the other.
So, yeah, if you prefer, we could, you know, switch it.
So if there's a screen issue, we would.
So they have that sit against that wall? Is that what you're
It would be.
Yeah, we were on a diet, so they all check the screen or the there. So,
Audience was facing.
yeah, and so that way, yeah, it looks the
saying?
side.
Set up, and that was really. That's my neck, we stood there.
Okay, just me. We can do that. Certainly, the removable tables, we'll set it up that way next time, and also. I can actually see the mic. Yeah.
You didn't need to have the.
They, I think we were supposed to get any headings, IT staff, or something, but they didn't.
You did always.
Great, I had nothing here.
Well,
Drive with the IT staff and it went well. I was not familiar, I guess, with training the computers. That's what we go over today. Okay. Thank you. Would we like to do any training needed?
Oh,
Yeah. Item 10, comments from members, my only comment is I'm glad we're all meeting in person finally, so just meet everybody. A lot of you I've not met before. It's great to meet in person. There's no other comments. I motion to be adjourned. See you next time.
Almost.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.